All right, let's talk about learning music by ear versus learning music off of a score. This is something that is very important to talk about and especially applies to genres like jazz or pop, but can also apply to classical music as well. So, obviously, the score is the most traditional way to have music notated, and it's the most ubiquitous. And so, if you show up somewhere, to a recording session or to a, theater, pit orchestra, or any sort of thing like that, probably going to be notated fully on a score. So it's very important to know how to read music. That can be an entirely different video about reading music, learning how to read, why that's important. But that's the most traditional way to do it. Another way is with a lead sheet. So lead sheet would just have the melody and the chords, or no melody at all and just the chords. So that's another way to have it. Or you could have it where there's just nothing at all and it's just all oral. So that's what I want to discuss in this video. What are the benefits and drawbacks to learning music orally? And how can you develop that skill and all of that? So if you watched my jazz musicianship video series, I talked a lot about learning by ear and how important that is in the jazz tradition, because you are listening over and over to recordings, you're listening over and over to solo transcriptions, you're listening over and over to a variety of different material, and it's just really, really important to do, because then you sort of capture the essence of this is how Clifford Brown played Sandu. You're going to transcribe a solo, or this is how Herbie Hancock played Watermelon Man. You're going to just listen to that over and over, and you're going to capture the essence of it, and then have your own interpretation. So I talked a lot about that in my jazz musicianship series. So that also applies here. If you are just learning purely by ear, there are a lot of great things about doing that, because it's just there. Here's the music. It's just there, and you're listening to the music, and you're, learning straight off that recording. And so there's no intermediate step. In that situation, I think the score sort of serves almost as a, an intermediate step that you don't always have to take. And especially in jazz. Now, I think in classical music it can be different, because the role of a recording in classical music, I think, is a lot different than in other traditions. And I think part of the deal with that is that you're still listening to a lot of different performers, but a lot of that music is so complex that it's really hard. I won't say it's impossible, but it's really hard to capture all of the notes, and especially if it's classical music and that values playing all the right notes with no improvisation, it's really just more challenging to do off of a recording, because you're having to listen and, is that a D flat or an E flat, or is that I don't know, could be any number of things. And so it's like a transcription of a full, orchestration almost. In jazz, it's a little bit easier, because you know your chords. I mean, if you're an advanced enough musician that you know your jazz chords, and you know how to reharmonize things, then all you have to do is listen to Clifford Brown play it, Sandu a million times, and then just play it. And that's how you learn it. You learn it through the recording itself, and it's just all there for you to learn. And there's not much ambiguity, because that sounds like an E flat 7, so it probably is. That's next chord sounds like an A flat 7, so probably is. And then you sort of, that's how you figure it out. So I think that could be another way, another framework to view oral learning. Now, how, what are the results in terms of learning music orally and learning music with a score? In my experience as a student and a performer, obviously, is when I learn a jazz tune specifically off a score, I don't learn it as well. When I learn it off a recording, again, you have that essence, and it's all there for you. So that, in that way, learning jazz off a recording is the way to go, because you just get more out of it than the score. The score doesn't give you much. It's just the chords and the melody. And so if you want to hear how Herbie Hancock is voicing the chord, then you listen to the recording. That's not going to be in the score unless you found a solo transcription. That's a totally different topic. But, you're not going to be able to find that, unless you listen to the recording. And so that's why, in my experience, I have a lot better time, learning off the recording. Now, it is much slower, much, much slower. But in the end, it's much more rewarding because I have this recording and I learned it straight off of it. And so it's pretty, self-explanatory. It's just there. I can just play it because I know the tune now because I listen to it over and over and over again. When I learn it, with a score, with a lead sheet, it is, it's a lot faster. But on the other hand, it is significantly less rewarding because all I know is what the lead sheet says. Sometimes the lead sheet's not even right, so I think, you gotta just take that into account. It's a lead sheet. It's gonna give you hardly any information to begin with. So as far as my recommendation as to what you should do, I think it depends. If you're learning classical music, the score is probably a better way to go because all that nuance is captured in the score. If it's jazz or if it's pop or if it's anything like that, and you're trying to get, the essence, if it's a pop tune and you're trying to learn, oh, here's exactly what the piano does, here, so I can, if you're going to, I use this example in a previous video that I filmed earlier today, if you're going, on the casinos and you're playing with the cover bands and they want you to play exactly the right figure in the right hand, and then you got to listen to a recording. There are books, I have several up on that shelf behind the camera. I have a Paul Simon book, I have an Elton John book, I have a book of children's songs, just all that stuff. And so I think it's fine to do, but again, that doesn't really capture all that because that's just a lead sheet. It's not going to give you all that much information. So pop tunes, jazz tunes, rock, all that, all recording. Totally all recording. I've been doing a lot of rock and roll lately. And so when I'm learning those songs, I'm listening to the recording. Sometimes they perform them in different keys than we perform them in, but still, it's still 4 or 5 chords. I could make a whole video about learning rock and roll. That's a very interesting and totally different thing that I had never really done until pretty recently. So if you want to see that, look down in the comments. So that's pretty much all I have for this video. If you'd like to see others like this, please leave a comment. Please like this video, share this video, and thank you for watching.